Hello and welcome to another episode of Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I have the lovely Alara Sage joining me today. We're going to be talking about Kundalini awakening, presence, breath, embodiment of our feminine power, the mother, and the era of wealth. I'm super excited to have Alara on this show. I was on her show. Please go and check that out. It was such a fun conversation, but this is all about her today. So I want to jump right in and let you know who Alara is. So Alara Sage is an intuitively gifted wealth embodiment mentor who coaches provocatively and soulfully. She helps changemakers and trailblazers embody their wealth, consciousness, creative genius, and visionary potential. Alara Sage is the host of the Wealth Embodiment podcast. She believes that we are here to embody the frequency of wealth to create life magically. Alara, welcome to the show.
Yay. I'm so happy to be here again with you, Liz. It was such a delicious conversation last time. I know it's going to be just as delicious.
I agree. I'm super excited to just jump right in, but I want our listeners to learn a little bit more about you. So, what led you to doing the work that you're doing today?
Yes. So in 2020, I had a six-figure business and then I had all my money stolen, which that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But higher self actually told me that it was going to happen. And part of it was karmic. And part of it was really about a deeper understanding of where my foundation was really at, the energetics of my foundation, and that it wasn't rooted in embodiment. I didn't honestly feel safe with me. So all of my money was stolen. And, right after that, I channeled a bunch of fear out. And then I was like, I got this. I've honestly created so easily throughout my life. This will be a no biggie. And went about my usual ways of creating quantumly, and it didn't work. And I just kept trying and nothing was working. And instead of creating my money again, my actual six-figure business just crumbled and went from six figures to practically nothing. And what happened during that time is that the great mother really came in and started working with me, drew my awareness to my womb, drew my awareness to deep energetic distortions I held in my sacral around power, money, and sex, and really helped me transform those vibrations at a core level, as well as reconnect to her and understand this disconnection that we've had with the feminine, with the mother, for many centuries, over 5,000 years on our planet, and really realign with her presence and allow her to guide me through my life and through my journey to then again recreate my six-figure business, but now from a completely different foundation. This foundation, for one, it feels very different in my body where I don't actually fear anything to do with money, but it also lights me up so incredibly much to be embodied for one in my own personal power, but also to be really aligned with this bigger vision that feels well beyond me. And that is really what I feel like I'm here to bring to the world as well.
Nice. I think we need that new vision too in this new era of being as we step into really on the planet a new way of being fully because we are leaving behind so much and stepping into a new way of being, going from that direct masculine into the feminine. So let's talk about that. So I heard you mention that your old ways of doing things weren't working. So what were those old ways of doing as opposed to that journey to finding what were the new ways to create?
Well, the creation was the same. It's just that I was holding on to belief structures with regards to my power, money, and sex that were not allowing me to create. So the way that I was going about creating was absolutely the same. It's, the law of attraction, the understanding of our personal vibration, but my personal vibration was not aligned because of very deep subconscious beliefs, you know, uh, energies that I'd brought through from other lives as well. And so that was really about power, money, and sex. And those are the three primary distortions of humanity.
So let's dive a little deeper into that. You mentioned a few things there. You mentioned, the past and the past programming. You also mentioned past lives. So what did you suss out within yourself along the lines of the past and past lives that were holding
Yeah,
you back?
there was a lot. So, in my own personal journey, I had a Kundalini awakening that really woke me up to the fact that I was numb and I was shut down. For me was always something I've always been very sexual, but in all honesty, the majority of my life it didn't actually feel good and I didn't know why. And so through my process of understanding that, wow, like I'm actually shut down in my sexual energy and I don't understand why. And so that whole process of my money being stolen took me way deeper into that, where, for instance, I've shown a life where I was a sex slave. And it was for this like Greek king, or, royalty is what I'm trying to say there. And, I was in a harem of women, and there was this real distorted connection between my survival, how I got food, how I was cared for, and giving my body. And whether I wanted to or not, I had to. And that's how I was surviving. And this correlation between survival and giving that away, despite my own desires, despite what I actually wanted, like having to sacrifice it. And the correlation between food and like having my power taken from me was also another lens of that life. And because of that life and how that life was set up, I was very good sexually in that life. And so I had to use that. I had to use that to hold my position in the harem. And it was this competition between the women, right? Because if you were on his good side, if you were the one that he really liked, he treated you better. You got fed better, you got clothed, but everything was better for you. So it was about competing with other women was another lens of that particular life. And the irony of it is in that life, I escaped. And my mother in this life was also in that life. She wasn't my mother. She was just another harem girl but she was like my best friend in the harem. And this is the craziest thing, Liz. When I was in this part of the life, because it went on for, a couple of months that I was working with this life on the different angles of these belief structures. I was in my cervix, and the mother was just working with me in my cervix and working with my mother in that life. And I get this phone call in this life from my father. And he says, I need to tell you something. And, I'm close with my parents, but we don't talk all the time. As, your mother was just diagnosed with cervical cancer. And I didn't even know she was sick because it's a very aggressive. And I said, I know why. I know exactly why. And I tell them everything. And I told them everything. And she's in remission now. But it was a very profound experience of the interconnectedness, not only between this life and other lives, but this life and the other beings in our life and other, right? But in that life, I escaped and I tried to bring her with me. She wouldn't come. I wanted freedom, but the irony is I escaped and I had quote unquote freedom, but I had no food. I was scared of my survival. I didn't know really what to do with myself outside of those walls. So there was another aspect in that life around, liberating myself and the old fears of then actually, not thriving in that space, actually being hungry and scared and worried I was going to be caught. So there was so many different layers to that particular life that I had to go through. And then there was another life where I was a king and I didn't understand. I had this gift of taking on more and more and acquiring more wealth and more power. And I got greedy. And I forgot about the people I loved. I had a wonderful wife who I loved dearly. I had boys who I loved dearly. And I pushed them away because of my greed. And on the deathbed, I didn't want any of it. I just wanted them back. And at one point in that life, I was taken down to the villagers that I had power over, that I was, taking their wealth from. And I saw how happy they were and how connected they were and how they were working as a community. And even though they had no money, they were still supporting each other and they were interconnected. And that is what I wanted on my deathbed. So that was another life that was so deeply profound in these relationships of power, sex, and money.
Wow. What an experience and what a gift to be able to see those past lives. I think many of us have lived similar past lives. I know my most recent past life was a similar story to your first story, and I found that it reflected in my current life. How did that story in your past life mirror what you experienced in this life?
Well, I had seen that I was giving a lot of my power away to the men in my life with regards to wealth and sex, and not in a bad way. I have very My partner and I have a wonderful relationship, but it was really exposed just how I didn't even know necessarily how to stand in my power when it came to what I truly wanted sexually. I was still for many years in this space of, well, this is what I give you, right? Like this is what you want from me. So I'll give you my body instead of like, this is what honestly, I want, right? This
Mhm.
is how it feels good to me. This is how it doesn't feel good to me. And really turning that around onto myself and making those proclamations for myself of what I deeply desire, both sexually and in life, and that really opened up deeper understandings of what do I really want? What do I really want in this life? And it was so beautiful because it activated deep levels of creativity and passion about life that I wasn't experiencing for the majority of my life.
Wow, that's wonderful. Did your Kundalini awakening experience play into that as well?
My Kundalini awakening experience, yes, it definitely woke a lot of energy up in my space. It really woke up my power. Uh, for me, that was really stepping me out of numbness into ecstasy. I mean, that's what I started to experience through Kundalini and through my connection with it, and the deeper relationship there was ecstasy and pleasure. And this is so often what I see in my clients, are these women who we've really disconnected from our bodies. We've really disconnected from pleasure, and not just sexual pleasure, like all pleasure of life. Before my Kundalini awakening, even the things that I enjoyed had this kind of like grayness over them. They weren't really lighting me up, even though they were the things that I enjoyed. After my Kundalini awakening, and even more so now, this real aliveness, availability to pleasure in everything that I do.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And speaking of pleasure, you'd also mentioned your sacral chakra and how that opened up and played a role in, your experience when you were going through healing and recreating after the loss of your wealth. Can you talk about the role the sacral chakra played and what you saw within yourself and what you help your clients with as they may be maneuvering through similar obstacles?
Yeah. So in spirituality, we talk a lot about the heart and we talk a lot about the third eye, and we don't talk about the sacral that much. And higher self has always taught me that there's three creator centers, the sacral and the third eye. And the sacral is huge because those three primary wounds I spoke to, sex, money, and wealth, are all there in the sacral chakra. It's also where our emotional body lives. It's also where our connection and intimacy lives. So, just through those words, we can see how much humanity holds there in the realm of trauma. And for me, it was, higher self and the great mother just kept taking me into the sacral chakra, into my womb, into, that's where our inadequacy is. It's where our feelings of that we're not safe, that we're not secure, these feelings, these beliefs that we have to acquire whatever it is to make us feel safe, right? More money, or acquire a relationship, or acquire a different job or a different position. That's going to make us feel safe. That's going to make us feel secure. And that's just all external, right? So the great mother really taught me how to connect to that in my body, how to program my body to believe in that in my subconscious mind, regardless of what's happening in the external. And so the feeling of that safety, of that security, no matter what the economy is doing, feeling safe, secure, no matter where you're living, what your surroundings are. My partner and I moved back to Colorado after being in California. And we had this like crazy hiccup, or the place we were going to move to was just not available. But we were already moving. So we came to Colorado. We had nowhere to go. And yet we were having so much fun. We were laughing. We were, every day we were going out looking for places, doing the action, but laughing about it, making it fun, in the realization that none of it had any hold over us, that we are safe and secure regardless. Even if we don't have a place to live, it will all work out for itself. And, with my clients, seeing that fundamental shift of that belief, we stop then grasping for things externally outside of ourselves. And quite frankly, we stop giving it so much validation. And what happens is, that awareness, that attention, that focus turns in on ourselves. And we really get to ask those questions of, okay, I'm safe, secure. What do I really want to do? Like, what is lighting me up? What are those intuitive hits that I've been hearing, that I know that if I take action on that, that's going to create a really beautiful life for me. And then we start to be able to really follow that inner guidance. And now we're really creating that life that is truly aligned to our unique genius.
Oh, I love that so much. Well said, Alara. And yes, to living and finding your creative genius. I want to kind of circle back to the mother again, and let's share with our listeners what is working with the mother. What is that history around the womb? Because you are a womb shaman. Let's walk us through like what we may have been missing along the way and what is being taught now and kind of reminded in us about our womb and the mother.
So, as we know, we've been in a patriarchal society, and really the feminine and also the mother, which is essentially the same thing, hasn't been on the planet for over 5,000 years. And the mother is the womb, the great mother, the cosmic womb of all of creation. And a subset of the great mother is Mother Gaia, right? She is the mother of humanity. And she's a really great one to understand this concept. We can think about how she provides for us. And the mother is resource. The feminine is resource. The feminine, the mother, is wealth. And I even still hear a lot in spirituality that money is masculine, and it's actually just not true. All resources, and in all resources, are feminine energy. And what we've done for so many years is we've forsaken the mother. We've turned our back on the earth. We've turned our back on our own feminine power, whether you're male or female, the feminine wisdom, and thus our availability to the inexhaustible wealth of the mother. She is inexhaustible. But because we've forsaken her and turned our back to her, we have believed very strongly in scarcity, right? Because that's been the experience when you cut off the source, so to speak, even though we're never truly cut off. But when you turn your back on it and you deny it, and you pretend it's not there, then you are going to experience scarcity. You're going to experience lack. And because we have experienced this lack, we've been creating this environment where we are, in limitation, and we are stealing each other, taking from each other. We are not in harmony. We are in disharmony with Mother Gaia, right? We are utilizing her resources until one resource is gone, and then, grabbing onto another one, and not listening to her, because all of that information, all that wisdom is available to all of us. It's not just available to those of us who are working with the mother. All of us have intuition. All of us have knowing. And when we live, what happens is you just line up. It's like a pipe. If you think you have these pipes going to you that are your, pipes of resource of abundance, and you line those up to her, and the resources come in, and you align to that infinite wealth. And it's extremely powerful, because all of your guidance that comes in will tell you exactly what actions to take. That if you listen, and if you have the courage to listen, and you let go of your ego, because those are usually the two biggies, the courage and the ego, then it just happens for you, and it continues to happen for you. And the wisdom is far beyond our mental understanding, right? Because there's people out there going, oh, well, this is what the economy is going to do, and this is where the market's going. And they are analyzing current data, which, is already in the past. Wisdom foresees well beyond that. And so when we're connected to that wisdom of the mother, we are hearing, receiving insights, receiving guidance that will align us to things that are available in the future. So you're not caught in these cycles anymore. You're not caught in these economic fluxes anymore, because you're aligned to the abundance that always is. There's always abundance. This is clear as people who still make and double and triple their wealth in times of quote unquote scarcity. It happens because it's real. And for humanity, reconnecting to the mother, the feminine within all of us, is reconnecting to these resources and beginning to learn how to work with the planet and in harmony with the planet, instead of what I always say, raping and pillaging her, because that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, wow. Well said. I just got back from Egypt, and depiction after depiction on the walls of the temples really, spoke to us being creator beings. And I think that this creator story that was, recreated, shall I say, over and over and over again, throughout the thousands of years, goes back to, the womb and the first creation, and us having the ability to create ourselves. We have that life force energy. We have that eternal life. We have that ability to create. It's witnessed in the woman in the womb that we have this creator energy. And I think that we've handed it off to kings and emperors and whoever, the higher ups may be, and forgotten that we have that ability to create. Alara, can you talk a little bit about that, since you are this womb wisdom teacher, that creation energy that we hold within ourselves?
Absolutely. We are all creating every single second of the day. And this isn't always so easy to hear, because we want to believe that we have these desires and these wishes and these dreams. And then a large part of us wants to believe that, life is happening to us, and therefore we can't fulfill our wishes and dreams and desires. And it's just not true, because, you know, our vibration, everything is energy. And it's proven now biologically that our subconscious mind, our beliefs, those are signals. Our thoughts, our feelings, our belief structures are all signals that are actually being brought in at a cellular level via the proteins. So our proteins bring in our belief structures, our thoughts, our emotions, and act upon those signals. And therefore, you're creating your body all the time, constantly recreating via your own cells, your body. And you are recreating through those thoughts and beliefs and the vibration of your body, your physical reality. We are so incredibly powerful. The difference being is that we have these subconscious beliefs that we're not aware of. And they're the ones that are talking to the cells and communicating to the cells. And so we're constantly creating these things that we don't want and aren't fully aware of why we're creating that. The importance is to know that we have those three creator centers, the sacral, the heart, and the pineal. The sacral, for women, as you mentioned, we have a womb. We literally create life. I mean, you cannot tell me that that is not effing magical, that we create physical bodies, human beings out of energy, nothingness. And that is a direct example of our power as creator beings. But whether you're male or female, you have that creative life force energy in your sacral chakra. And you have the ability through intention and awareness to direct that creative life force energy at anything you desire, anything you want to create. But it takes, the awareness of your current vibration. And, back to my story about my money, I knew that I had limiting beliefs around money. I knew that when I spoke about money, when I looked at even when I had lots of money, because it's not about the amount of money you have or not, right? I would look at my money and I would get triggered because of my belief structures about the money. Right? But I was choosing to ignore it. I was choosing not to look at it. And when we do that, ultimately continuing to go down the same path, whatever that is for yourself. For me, that was, destruction of my financial system so that I could really look at it. But understanding that you have to have that awareness. You have to look at your life and have the willingness, the courage to say, where am I not creating? I mean, everything I want, everything I desire, right? We're not just talking like, oh, my life is good. No, I'm saying, what do you really want? What is that big vision for you? If you had a magic wand, what would your life look like? And then where is your life not aligning to that? Right? Because that's going to tell you everything. It's going to tell you all of your belief structures about your power, about your sex, about your money, about your self-love. And then you get to address those and reprogram your mind, because that's all the mind is, just simply a computer. We can program it and reprogram it as many times as we want. Doesn't matter what your past has been like. It doesn't matter what your ancestral lineage is like. Doesn't matter all the past lives, the karma. None of it matters. You always have a choice in this moment to reprogram your mind. And then it's about taking action, taking that aligned action that lights you up, that feels good. And, in the heart center, we have to be willing to love ourselves, right? We have to be willing to love ourselves when we are broke, right? Love ourselves when we're rich. Love ourselves when we're with a partner. Love ourselves when we've got 10 pounds extra weight. Love ourselves when we're totally fit, right? Love ourselves when we're eating the donut. Love ourselves when we're eating kale. Like, love ourselves irregardless of our actions and what we are experiencing. Because that love, that self-love, the heart center is what really aligns you to your soul and your genius. And when you align to your genius, it's like, watch the F out, because this person, male or female, is going to turn on in a really big way. And you're serving from that place, right? You're serving through love. You're serving gratitude through appreciation. Everything in your life becomes gratitude, appreciation, love. That is one of the reflections I get constantly is the amount of love that is in my space, that is in my family, that is in the containers that I create. And that's simply through the self-love, right? And then the third eye, the pineal gland, that's all about our imagination. The willingness to imagine, the willingness to give yourself permission to dream and realize that anything that you can imagine in your mind, you can create in the physical reality, and how to focus your mind in order to bring that imagination into physical reality.
Mm, love that. What were the limiting beliefs that you had to get through in order to get to that love, appreciation, and gratitude in your life and that action? What was it that you had to reprogram within yourself to push past, your experience that you found yourself in?
Particularly with gratitude and appreciation.
Sure.
One of them was, my own energy of inadequacy and unworthiness. So inadequacy is a frequency of the womb. It's rooted in our creator power. And so women hold it in their womb, men hold it in their hara. Another way to word it is unworthiness. And yeah, having to shift that very much within my being. And the other one is value,
Mm,
seeing myself as value. I was using the affirmation, I am value, and really feeling that vibration in my body. I create value. It was so beautiful to me because I've always really liked value. I have this affinity for quality. I'll always be like, oh, I really like that one. And it's always the most expensive one or the nicest one or whatever, not necessarily the most expensive, but it's always of quality. And so I always saw that outside of myself and was drawn to it. I had to turn that around and see myself as that value, as that quality. That was a really big one for me.
nice. And I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, have struggled over the years, especially women, with that worthiness piece and that value, especially when you're coming from past lives, where you were a sex slave or a servant or something like that. You mirror in this life ways that reflects, that lack of worthiness, that lack of value. And I know personally speaking, like my journey has been the journey back to self-love, worthiness, and valuing myself in the world, and find, like you spoke to earlier, like finding that joy and happiness in my life and living from that space instead. I love that, Alara. I wanted like kind of dive deeper into this because there was more emotion. I was listening to an interview that you did with someone else before interviewing you to kind of get a sense of who you were and be in your energy. And you spoke a lot about shame. And I think shame is one of the big things that a lot of people deal with and kind of carry without even realizing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had no idea I had shame. And, my higher self just kept guiding me back to my sexual energy, back to my chakras, my sacral chakra. And, my shame in this life was from being sexually abused as a child. Uh, and then of course the sex slavery, there were other lives as well with regards to sexual energy. But what I really connected to, I had the most profound experience. I worked with shame for a couple of years, and it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that I reconnected to my innocence and my sexual power. And it was such a profound experience. I saw myself as this 3-year-old girl, and my sexual energy turned on, as does everybody's at about 3 or 4 years of age. Now, that doesn't mean we become sexual, right? It just means that that life force energy, that creative life force energy comes on. This is why children touch themselves. And I saw myself, we lived on these 18 acres of properist, and I would spend so much time out in Mother Gaia connecting to her all by myself and just being in the forest. I loved it so much. And I was in that body again of the 3-year-old version of me. And I was walking through the forest and I was getting aroused by everything. I was feeling the sun on my skin and I was getting aroused. I was hearing the water in the creek and I was like, oh, that just sounds so good. And I was feeling the dirt on my bare feet and it just felt amazing. And the sounds of the birds. And I was just aroused. I was aroused in my body. Now, at 3 years of age, I had no idea what that meant. It just felt good. That's all I knew is it felt good. And as I was in this vision, I saw, my parents around me, and my grandfather was the one that abused me, but I saw them start to sense this turn on. And it was just like, that's not safe. And let's start shutting it down. Just shut it down, turn it down, shut it off. And that's where the shame came in, along with my grandfather. But it was this like, oh, wait, so these amazing feelings that I have in my body, just walking through Mother Gaia, this arousal, this is bad. This is wrong. This is okay. Like, this isn't okay. This is bad. I got to stop this, shut this down. Not okay. And then I was also raised not heavily. It was initially and then it fell off, but I was raised Catholic. And, it all continued through my life as I did come more into my sexual activity in high school, where same thing happened. Like my sexual essence was not safe. It caused issues. It created drama. It had all of this grossness attached to it. And I just kept shutting it down until I shut it off completely.
How were you able to turn that light switch back on within yourself as an adult woman?
It was a lot of self-work. I start off with the energetics and going into the sexual energy and all of the different experiences that I'd had there as high school, because I'd had really a lot of issues with uh, attracting men that had girlfriends, and the girlfriends would get mad at me. And I wasn't like, I wasn't doing anything intentionally. And it caused me a lot of pain. It caused me a lot of friendship broken. And so it started there and it just kept going deeper. And then it went to, I hadn't even remembered my sexual abuse until that came up. And addressing that. And when I went into that energy, there was a lot of greed, sexual greed in the lineage of my father and grandfather.
Mm.
It was one of the grossest energies I've ever connected to. I've worked with a lot of it in my clients as well. And it creates this really fundamental distortion in sexual power, which sexual energy is creative life force energy. It creates life. It creates. So understanding that to really heal our sexual power is to step into our creator power. Um, and then with my recent partner, when we met, it started with my ex-husband and my Kundalini awakening. I started having these shutdowns during sex where all of a sudden I wanted to scream. I wanted to scream, stop. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to do all this stuff. And it wasn't my ex-husband or my husband at the time. He wasn't doing anything, And so I would tell myself like, what are you doing? No, you're not going to do that. And I would shut down. It was crazy how this all happened right around my Kundalini awakening. I'd go into this black place where I couldn't talk or move. And it was a complete protective measure where it was just a complete shutdown. And my husband at the time and I started to recognize this, and we started to seek sexual counseling. And she told me you got to do it. You got to scream. If you got to hit him, you got to hit him, and she told him, like, you got to understand this isn't about you. She needs to get this out. And we kind of played with it a little bit, but I divorced him, not any fault of his own. And then my current partner, I told him, I was like, it started happening with him. And I said, I need to express. And you have to understand that this has nothing to do with you. And I need you to just hold space for me, love on me, not ask me what I need, not try to talk to me, just be there with me, like love me in that moment. And he agreed. And I mean, it came raging out. We would sexually, and all of a sudden I would just be screaming at the top of my lungs, beating the bed, like all of this deep, deep pain. And my yoni came roaring out. All the shame came roaring out. And, of course, it was radically profound for me, but it was also really profound, our relationship. And, because of his availability to be there with me, to trigger me sexually and then hold the space while I move through that trigger. We are so close, and it feels like there's nothing that could ever happen that would come between us.
And how beautiful that he was able to hold that space for you. How beautiful that you were able to request that of him and be able to move through that to be able to get to the other side. Because we are here in the conversation and we've been many places: power, money, sex, sacral chakra, disconnection, limiting beliefs, reprogramming. It's all connected. This whole conversation, even though it feels like we're jumping around, is really all connected. That's just what keeps coming to my mind over and over again. And being able to purge those emotions and really open up your yoni and be able to surrender to and be received is a beautiful thing. And how beautiful for you to be able to walk over to the other side into a new way of being and being able to find yourself again. I think that's beautiful, Alara. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yes. And, all of my pleasure came back online. Like now I experience pleasure sexually, which I had not had in a very long time. And how my yoni opens up and I hit, multi dimensional orgasm, full body orgasm, just, the orgasmic abilities now are just ineffable. There's no limit to them. And I never experienced that, but releasing those energies out of my pelvis, out of my yoni, out of all of my sexual organs radically transformed my life.
I love how you have the physical expression of releasing those things out of your body, but you also have the energetic expression of your spontaneous Kundalini awakening, and them both working side by side. And this central channel of that self-realization, that embodiment, and that expressing of the self, and all of these things that you've been through, since that awakening and losing your money and having to wrangle your emotions and walk yourself through that. It's really a beautiful path, to hear and to witness from you, Alara. What would you like to share with our audience about these experiences and, how they can work with their experiences too?
I've had a connection to my higher self little, and we all do. And that intuition, that inner knowing, I invite the audience to cultivate it because it will never, ever lead you astray. You can misread it, you can misinterpret it, you can believe that your emotions are your intuition, but your actual intuition is the most profound connection you can ever have. And I wouldn't have been able to go through everything I went through. I had that higher self guiding me, telling me what to do. I had the courage to pursue it and knowing inside it, like every cell of my body resonating with, if you do this, you will have more freedom, you will have more love, you will have more pleasure, you will have more wealth. And trusting that, even though sometimes it seemingly went the other direction, sometimes seemingly things were torn down before they were created. But when we trust that, again, it is truly who we are. And there was nothing in my mind that can replace that voice, that intuition, that connection. So I implore the audience to develop that for yourself.
Do you have any practices that you can share with the audience around tapping into that, or what we can do to hold that sense of wealth as we walk ourselves through these limiting beliefs and these wounds to get to the other side, to be able to hold the energy of wealth?
Absolutely. That's a great question. For connecting to your higher self, it's through the heart. And the best way to do it is to drop your awareness into your heart and first and foremost come into the energy of gratitude. That brings you into what's called heart coherence, where your mind and your heart start working in unison and you start to use more parts of your brain. And this is where you can really hear, sense, feel, know your higher self in a more intimate space. And then ask questions and you will get the answers. And if you don't get the answer, you ask the question again. And you may not get the answer that moment, but you will get the answer. And validating those answers, validating when you get the answer, taking action on that answer, trusting that and building that up. You don't have to do it with big life. You can do it with really fun things. One of my favorite things to do is like, what am I going to wear today? Because there's a part of you that really cares what you wear, not because of how you look, but because of how it feels. And there's this genius inside of you, that the queen, the sovereign being that has this power to them and they want to feel a way. You can play with it in your closet. What should I wear today? What feels in alignment for me to wear today? Little things, little choices, the everyday things that'll build your confidence. It'll build your self-trust for when those big decisions come and you're asked to make big actions and you have to dig deep for that self-trust. And for the wealth, we have to reprogram ourselves. We have to continuously look for the abundance that already exists in your life. You have it. Everybody has a level, an aspect of abundance. Where is it for you? Focus on that. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you do have. Focus again and again and again. Appreciate it. Feel grateful for what you do have. You will expand that abundance. You will expand the havingness that you already have. The appreciation, the gratitude will grow that energy. You'll connect to that feeling of abundance more readily. And as you connect to that feeling, it's whatever it is. Maybe you have an abundance of time, you have an abundance of shoes. I don't know, you have an abundance of trees in your yard. It doesn't matter, about the energetic vibration and making that connection. And as you start to feel what abundance feels like, then you can start to bring that into other areas of your life where you perceive that you lack, and you'll be able to connect to the truth that too is abundance.
I love that so much, Alara. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you. Alara, how can people find you?
alarasage.com and all the social medias, Alara Sage.
And your podcast again is, because you've rebranded just recently.
Yes. Wealth Embodied.
Awesome. And what is a jewel of wisdom that you would love to leave our audience with today?
Don't forget to breathe. The breath is so powerful. It's always there. It's always free. If you ever are in a moment where you're not sure, where you're hesitant what to do, just pause and take a breath. That one breath can shift your vibration.
Awesome. Great advice, Alara. Thank you so much for bringing your genius to Raise the Vibe with Liz today. I really appreciate you, and it's been such a pleasure to host you.
Thank you so much, my love. I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us again. I'm Liz Peterson, and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. And you can find me at raisethevibewithliz.com and on social media at Raise the Vibe with Liz. Thank you, everyone. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe. Have a great day, everybody. Bye now.